taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games and the gaming industry. It is July 15th, 2020. Good grief. Jeez, more than half a month past halfway through 2020. What the heck happened to the year? And, I guess we all know what happened to the year. Don't need to hash that out. This is the Augmented Reality Podcast, where we're going to forget about all of that crap and talk about games and fun, awesome stuff. My name is Ash. I'm here, as always, with Cybsidian, and if you're listening live today, please do say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast, and please do not forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells us and YouTube that you appreciate this content. Plus, the like button's just been feeling a little bit neglected. Told me the other day it feels like you're not really contributing you're not holding up your end of the relationship, so you might want to work on that. And if you're listening after the fact with on one of the audio-only platforms, we're glad you're here as well, and we appreciate your likes and follows. It does take us some time to get the podcast up to those platforms. Should be up to date right now, though. If you want the latest info sooner, though, definitely listen to the live show on the YouTube channel, where in addition to the podcast, you'll find all kinds of other fun and informative gaming content as well. All right. Just continuing, slightly waiting for Cyb to boot up here. We do have Cyb. Okay, welcome.
Yep.
Good job. How are you doing today?
It's a very mixed week. It's an extremely mixed week. Oh Lord. The news and the info are coming in bursts. We had a couple of events over the weekend. We had the Devolver Digital Expo, and then we had the Ubisoft event. We're going to talk about those a little bit. And we had it's been kind of quiet since then, but there's been a bit of a dump of Cyberpunk 2077 info that has kind of gone under the radar, and so we'll be diving into that. I just discovered that I thought I had finished preparing for the podcast today, and then I discovered Night City Life of the website nightcitylife.de. It's a German website devoted to cyberpunk stuff. Had gotten the opportunity to play through the first 4 hours of the game, and they published a ridiculously detailed article a few days ago. Now it's in German, so it's taken some time to translate it. I'll be using a lot translated by Google Translate because I wanted to get the maximum information possible, but you can find summaries on Reddit and on different news sites as well that are translated by human beings, but they're kind of condensed summaries of the info. I chose to go with Google Translate just so I could get more of the info. Take your pick there, but so much good stuff. It's 19 pages of article just packed with info, and we're not talking about like tiny little 4-paragraph what culture pages. We're talking like a dozen to 20 paragraphs per page. So you can definitely check that out, nightcitylife.de, especially if you can read German. If not, you could use Google Translate and definitely get the gist of what he's talking about. But we're also going to be talking about the fact that Ubisoft... What that is a wonderful thing that the Germans have done in the past, is they've made their language very translatable. If you are, perhaps interested in learning a language, you can learn some German. Or, you can just wait for us to take over your country and then you can, learn the German. So really, it's a win-win either way.
Well, that ambition hopefully died out close to 100 years ago, but you never know. We're also going to be talking about Ubisoft. In fact, let's just start talking about sort of impressions about the Ubisoft event. We had a question about it already in the chat. What do we think of what we've seen of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, of Watch Dogs Legion, and of Far Cry 6? Those are the big things to come out of that event for sure. Far Cry 6, it looks like Far Cry 6 was supposed to be a surprise reveal, but then it got leaked, and then Ubisoft was just like, gave us a teaser beforehand, being like, "Yeah, okay, we're gonna show this." So come check it out. So Far Cry 6.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, we don't have a ton of info about it yet. It's not coming till next year. But we saw a cinematic trailer for it. It's got Giancarlo Esposito as, looks like, the villain of the game, and he is. I love him as he's just a fine actor. Been in a lot of TV shows you probably recognize, like Breaking Bad. He showed up in the last episode of The Mandalorian as the villain in that, and is presumably going to be in the next season. And he showed up holding the Darksaber, which is interesting. He was also, my first exposure to him was a show called Revolution, which was a J.J. Abrams thing that happened a few years back, and the show was kind of a post-apocalyptic premise, but it was kind of a silly one. The show was not that great, but he was good in it, and I've loved him as an actor since. So it's cool to see him, bring his acting chops to the video game world. As far as what the story is, what the gameplay is like, we don't have a lot of that info yet. But and there was nothing about Beyond Good and Evil 2. That's
shocker.
Well, it's one of the ones that got delayed, but because Ubisoft delayed a whole bunch of their games.
Yeah.
But people have been looking for Beyond Good and Evil 2. They've been wanting info for a long time on that one, so it's too bad. It is too bad that we didn't see anything for that. So I'm curious what's going on with that game. Shua82 says J.J. Abrams, was it full of lens flares? I don't remember, but it was full of over-the-top. Like, in the first episode, the hero of the main hero guy, he's like super, super badass, but he's kind of a drunkard. But anyway, he literally takes on like 50 guys with swords and beats them all. So it was kind of silly right from the get-go, even though it took itself very seriously. But this main character's skills are like, he literally duels 50 guys at the same time and kills them all. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, enough about that. It didn't go very far.
Well, I mean, it's really weird because all last week I was looking up, I want to say it was Far Cry 3 or 4. It was the one with McLovin and the like celebrity like cameo thing that he did in the preamble stuff, in like the it was all like the shorts and the advertisements and stuff like that. It was the crazy guy on the island going, the definition of insanity is trying to play an Ubisoft game on 60 frames per second. It's try all you want. It's never gonna happen. That thing. Anyways, I'm being so cruel. Anyways, the just overall, not really a huge presence within like the story for McLovin, but gosh, those commercials were funny. They were hilarious. I loved them. They were great, and they should definitely do more stuff like that. So, Far Cry is one of those types of games where I look at it. I know people have fun with it. They have a great marketing team. They had Troy and Abed doing an ad for the next one. It was the one where you went to. It was the one. I don't know if that was the next one. It's the one where you went to the It was kind of like a North Korea type situation. And that one was those commercials were really great too, and I really liked them. And it almost made me want to play the game, but for whatever reason, just never happens. So yeah, this one looks interesting. I'm really hoping they bump up their story, because this is something that I'm seeing in more and more games. Is I really see us as the gaming community moving towards more really good narrative things, and this is really good. This is really, really good, because that's really what I feel we've been missing for a really long time in in games is like we had it for a long time. It was there, but then it just kind of faded over time, and it's been kind of a disappointing ramble ever since. So yeah, no, I'm actually very interested in this.
Cool. Yeah, it does look it's captured my interest. Again, we don't know too much about it yet, but it's captured my interest for sure. But then, of course, we also saw Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and we saw Watch Dogs Legion, and a couple other things. There was like a Tom Clancy thing, but it was like done in these like cartoony style graphics. And
Yeah,
people in the chat were
weird.
like, "What the hell is this? Is this a joke?"
Yeah,
But anyway,
it's an out of date April Fool's joke. Out of season, sorry, out of season April Fool's joke.
so Watch Dogs Legion. Now, this game, as I've been saying since it was first announced, this game looks very interesting. I do have some concerns about it, and I watched Young Yea did he got to play it for a few hours, and he confirmed some of my concerns about the game, which doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad game, but you have to go into it knowing what to expect. And it sounds like if you're expecting a deep story with all these characters, you're not going to get that. The characters are tools to get the job done. They're kind of entertaining. They have, a lot of them are interesting, but like he put side by side. Yeah,
I really felt that watching it the first time, like just the early trailers. They're like, play as anybody, and I was like, for a second, I got really excited, and then I looked at what they were suggesting, and I knew at that moment that these are going to be they're nothing but like glorified skins. Really is what they boil down to.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't have an actual personality or anything, and it's just kind of
some of them have the same voice actor saying the same lines. The recruitment message, because the premise, if you're not familiar, is that you can recruit pretty much anybody off the streets of London to work in your resistance, and you can they have a diverse set of skills, but personality wise, voice actor wise, the voice acting is doubled up, and the recruitment missions, it sounds like, are kind of they're basically computer generated, and he showed two characters saying the exact same lines and sending him to the exact same location to rescue somebody. That was like the recruitment mission for these characters, and so that's the kind of thing to expect. But
and it's a very, very, like, we've talked about this before. This is very much a Skyrim style, like, open world system, and it is not in any way, shape, or form an evolution of that. And so we really are not seeing the next step in this evolution. We're just seeing more of the same.
Yeah. So
sorry about that. So we really aren't getting that. We aren't really getting that meat of that next generation AI.
Yeah.
For world quests and for dialogue, because that's the one thing that I hate the most in Skyrim and Fallout, is that they give all of the actors the identical script, and they make the actors say it in an identical way. So you have like one line delivered by 10 voice actors that you can literally put together, and it would be a chorus basically saying it.
Which I always hate that. It's like, at least give a variation of the line to each different character.
Let them have a bit of a variation. And I mean, there are reasons why you typically don't want to do that, but it's easy enough to just like flag them. It's like have the character say something along this line, just like kind of like coming up with it, off the top of their head. Have them, and because we've done this a lot, is we'll give an actor a set of lines, and we'll say, have this actor say this line 5 or 6 times in as many slightly different ways as they wish to. And we get, basically we get 5 or 6 different variants of the same kind of thing said in a slightly different way. And sometimes, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, but we usually end up getting one that works. And then that's the one we end up sticking with. Or sometimes you end up clipping, because I know that you've actually clipped out like whole words from a sentence and then combine them with other words to make it, to get them to say something new or different or in a slightly different way. For anybody who's interested or looking at what can be done with like with a good editor or good audio editor, it's like Ash is very good at it because he's been able to like clip up like, well, we forgot to send this line to the actor or actress, but we managed to like combine them all to have them do this, and now we have a new line, and it's like, wow, from all of the other lines that we made. So that's like, I mean, that's really solid stuff.
It doesn't always work.
Not
but
smoothly always, but
it can be pretty
sometimes it'll
rough.
do in a
But like
pinch.
in a pinch, sometimes you can do stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, it seems like a game like Watch Dogs Legion is, of course, a massive scope. When you're talking about an entire city of characters that you can recruit, obviously, you're not going to hire, 2,000 voice actors and write 2,000 different like
It's like
individual
it's-
recruitment
yeah.
stories and stuff. That would be an insane amount of work. Your game would take 20 years to make. So obviously there's got to be some doubling up. But the AI tech is going to come eventually where you can generate quests on the fly that aren't so cookie cutter. So that'll be nice when that happens.
Yeah. And then you'll have and then there is tech and it's being worked on these like, well, I mean, it's kind of scary because some of it is the fake stuff, right? Where it's like they can make a movie star or an actor or maybe a famous speaker say anything, and like that tech is becoming more and more and more advanced, and they're just piecemealing it together from actual like just libraries of what these people have said for years and years and years and years. And so it's
kind of
very
scary.
yeah.
Kind of scary
So
when you
that
think
is
of what that tech could be used for.
yeah. But it's great when you think about it from a perspective of an actor who, they make their voice, they have a unique voice, like Morgan Freeman, right? He's got this unique voice. And a good creator, good developer for content doesn't want to overuse his voice, but they'll pay for the license to use his voice in this particular way, or some other actor or actress or whatever, and they'll then use that and combine that with what they're kind of with what they're going for, and use it to kind of create quests and events on the fly, or like a narrative that they write or something like that. And then they're able to take that and combine that together, and then boom, suddenly you have this whole unique thing that can be in some cases randomly generated off the fly, which is pretty darn impressive and really 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 opens the door for like what we could see or do in the future. And it is really amazing. I'm really excited to see where this goes, as long as it's done properly. It's very scary for what, like, when you realize what they could do to like frame people, but as far as like, this is going to open up a lot of doors, and then a voice actor or actress can be in multiple things, and you can then eventually get a cast of like 2,000 people in your game, or 10,000, right? Like if that's the number of good voice actors who have their voice print up on a mapping system, you're just paying for a selective set of lines from most of them, and then a handful of like auto generated ones from a bunch of others. It's like this is the future. This is the future of gaming.
Imagine
Of
giving your
development
voice
and
print
movies.
to the game, like just saying some demo lines at the beginning of the game, and then the player character speaks in your voice. Imagine that. Could be reality in the future. Actually, that would probably creep me out, but you could get your friend to give it some lines from, I don't know, Lucy Liu, and you could be Lucy Liu in the game. All right, so that's Watch Dogs Legion. So just to kind of wrap up, definitely not saying that it's going to be a bad game or not fun. It actually looks like it's probably a lot of fun, but you can't go in expecting deep story and deep characters. Just be aware of that. And then Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Yeah.
we've talked about this one before, so we won't go. I mean, we got a little more in-depth look at it, but it still kind of looks like the previous games, Odyssey and Origins. And, that's so if you enjoyed those games, you'll probably enjoy this one. If you didn't, you might not, unless you really, really love the Viking aesthetic. I find it a personal struggle to get behind the protagonists as Vikings, as going and, going and raiding and taking stuff, killing people for that purpose. I have a hard time just getting behind that in terms of.
I saw a funny comment. It's like, hey, at least they're sparing the women and the children. And I was like, yeah, they're sparing the women and the children. They're just stealing all of their food, burning down all their buildings and taking all of their supplies. Yeah, in the middle of a harsh winter season. I'm sure they'll be fine.
Just fine, yeah.
Yeah, they won't turn to cannibalism or anything like that. That's ridiculous and silly. No, of course that's not going to happen. Yeah. Of course they're not all going to die from exposure after running away from a burning village, and it's 4 days on foot to the next village, which may also have been burnt down by the same Vikings. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, just can't get behind that. I mean, they point out they made a point in the press conference of pointing out, okay, the Vikings were not just mindless killing machines. They were
this is true.
They were they had their families, they had their culture and stuff.
And a lot of them were settlers. This is the other thing. It's a lot of them settled lands that were unoccupied. And I mean, there's no evidence that any human presence was existing on places like Iceland when they settled that. As far as we can tell, that was just an empty, very volcanic, very mountainous island that basically was basically this is nothing here, and they settled it. And Iceland, by the way, is one of my it's a really awesome place. It's one of my top vacation spots that I want to go to. So it's it's stuff like that where they did that. But of course, and I mean, if we put it up on a chart, I probably would bet that raiding activities were probably less than 20% of what they did. It was probably less than 10% of what they did if you want to expand the time zone a little bit. And there's a really interesting story. I probably won't tell it here, but
no, we got to keep the show moving. But...
Yeah. I've mentioned it before, but if you're really interested, you can get me to tell you my the Viking story that I read about when I was quite young. It's very fascinating. It's very fascinating.
Yeah, so there's more to Vikings than just the raiding, but still, it's like if you have a friend who's he's an upstanding citizen, pays his taxes, goes to his job, does impeccable work, and then occasionally engages in some rampant mass murder, but he only does that every second Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right. And the rest of the time he's a really cool guy.
Yeah.
That's just kind of so. Yeah, I have, but if you don't have that issue, if you can get behind it, and again, we don't know what the story is going to be like. If the character is going to be oh, we shouldn't be doing this, although we see you doing this, they've shown this is a big part of the game, raiding settlements and bringing materials back for your own settlements, that kind of a thing. That's a big part of the game. We don't know what kind of moral choices you're going to have as a character in the game if you're going to be able to say, no, you know what? Let's stop doing this because it's not okay, and let's find peaceful ways of maybe trading and getting what we need. It could be an option. Might be wishful thinking on my part to think that might be part of the game, but we'll see. Anyway, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, a lot like the other games in terms of gameplay. Now, what's really interesting are the release dates, though. We've got Watch Dogs Legion coming out October 29th, and then Assassin's Creed Valhalla on November 17th. And if that date sounds familiar, it's because it's 2 days before the release date of Cyberpunk 2077, and Watch Dogs Legion, incidentally, comes out 3 weeks to the day before Cyberpunk 2077. Hence today's thumbnail and video image being, the Duel of the Fates. The, Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul scene. Actually worked out perfectly with the double saber, being able to put those game logos on there. So should Ubisoft, now these Ubisoft's release dates, they were probably, when do you think they would have been decided internally for these two games?
Probably, so Valhalla probably within the last like 6 months, I'd say, and Watch Dogs probably within the last year. That one was much further along, and they took it back to really flush it out. So I'm pretty positive that they had been aiming both of them or multiple titles for the big release on the new consoles and all this other stuff this year. Getting it in either as a last console game and then having it, poured over to the to the next console gen and that kind of stuff. Like that is probably most assuredly something that has been thought of for a very, very long time. Like it's just kind of like it's just kind of expected at this point. It's like you really need to think about this stuff. And so yeah, I would say for sure on that.
Right. So they were probably not anticipating Cyberpunk getting delayed again to like this exact same, to almost the same day that Valhalla's coming out. I imagine that's probably something they're not too thrilled about.
No, because because we know that this year is going to be this fall is going to be a little tight financially. If more things were moving along better, we might see less problems and whatnot. But there is still a lot of catching up that needs to be done. We do have record job gain in a lot of places and a lot of locations, but it's still it's still short. It's still fallen short of a little bit of stuff, and there's a lot of there's a lot of reasons for that, obviously, which we don't want to get into too much, but all of those reasons are, they pile up to make this a year that may or may not have people buying 5+ games. It may have them only buying 1 or 2 games. And when you have a bunch of titles coming out, because we got to throw Shadowlands into that too. So we're looking at like a bunch of big heavy hitters coming out this fall. That is definitely something to be very concerned about.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, given a choice, so yeah, Valhalla could see a bit of a downtick in sales if people are, if the people have the choice and they go with Cyberpunk, which a lot of people are. You may have, I mean, there's gonna be Assassin's Creed fans who don't care about Cyberpunk. Those people are out there for sure. So it's not like, I don't think Valhalla is gonna fail, but it probably is not helping. I mean, and who's going to have time to play both of them?
Right.
Probably nobody. So
right. So I mean, I know you played the last Assassin's Creed. I typically don't play Assassin's Creeds, not for any other reason other than usually don't have the time. But what are your thoughts? Are you remotely interested in picking this one up, or are you going to let this slide?
I played Origins and I really liked it. And I mostly was interested because of the ancient Egypt setting, which was really awesome, and I quite enjoyed it. But I wasn't. It didn't hook me. It didn't hook me enough that I wanted to pick up Odyssey when that came out, because it looked like Origins reskinned, and to some extent this does as well. Although I think I could have. And plus what I've talked about with the Viking, sort of the ethical struggles with playing as a raiding Viking. I doubt I'm gonna try Valhalla out. Not to say that it's not a good game, but it looks like more of the same but less interesting to me than Origins, kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I hate killing like what I can only describe as innocent bystanders in video games. It's like I really despise that. I also despise when like other players, or when like characters within the story does that. But I mean that makes it gripping, right? It's like, oh, I like that person. Oh no, they got killed by the big bad guy. Well, he just made my list.
Well,
It's
yeah.
like that kind of thing. It's really gripping, and because I get quite attached to digital creations for some odd reason. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I could do the random, pillaging and burning and all the other things that one might do in that scenario. It's just not necessarily engaging. Never really was. I feel bad when I kill a chicken in Skyrim by accident, just walking down the city square. Not to mention that it, for some reason, it aggroes the entire city. Every single person's like, "Oh, hey, you just killed that." That bandit or that like kind of neutral character just really gruesomely. I don't care. You killed a chicken. Oh, we're going to war, buddies. It's like all the blacksmith and everybody else that just kind of look at each other. They grab their weapons. They're like, "This ends now. That's the last chicken that's murdered in cold blood in our town." So yeah, it's kind of hilarious.
Chickens are a touchy spot in games. Let's go back to The Legend of Zelda. Yeah. So anyway, with that release date clash, how do you think it's going to affect Watch Dogs Legion, though? That game comes out 3 weeks earlier. I suppose hacking and stuff. Would you choose?
Mhm.
Would you choose Watch Dogs Legion over Cyberpunk? I have a hard time seeing that. By the way, we just had
I have a hard
blip in
time
the we had a blip in the stream there. Apologize, people. Don't know what happened there. That looks like an internet thing or a YouTube thing. But anyway, looks like we're back. Sorry, you were saying, Saib?
Yeah, no, it's we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I really don't think Watch Dogs is going to do well because I don't think it has the depth that it has, and I think that it's possibly not doing as good as what some people think it's doing. Just yeah, no, I kind of don't think so. So yeah. Yeah, I really don't think it can stand up to Cyberpunk.
I suspect, though, that it'll sell well enough for Ubisoft. Maybe they'll undersell a little bit, but I mean, Ubisoft, they crank out these massive. They crank out these games with massive worlds and massive scope, but not a lot of depth. That's just kind of what Ubisoft does. So they've got probably. How many studios do they have? Like, it's a ton. They've got a ton of studios.
It's a
working
lot,
on games.
yeah, it's a lot, and they're constantly working on stuff.
So this is not going to bankrupt them, and no. I feel like these are going to be decent games that enough people will play. But again, yeah, do they hold a candle to Cyberpunk? I don't think so. Not even remotely close. Not even remotely close in terms of the hype.
No, I've gotten kind of enough of a look at Watch Dogs 3 to know that I don't think it's going to do that well. It's just what they've gone for isn't enough of what they're trying to do for the game to get the game that they think that they're building, or that they're trying to like sell to the people. And it's like, kudos for them for trying. And hopefully I'm pleasantly surprised, but I really think it boils down to just they don't have enough resources to do this in the way that they think. But of course I could entirely be wrong. It might be the brand new League of Legends that everybody's looking for, with an almost infinite number of customizable characters that have perhaps hundreds of voice actors but not thousands. So you shrug your shoulders and think, whatever. I really, I long for the day where you have a full living, breathing city, from everything from kind of like slummy types to really rich types, and you play any character in that entire world in a very deep role play kind of way. I think that would be cool. Other people call that life, but whatever.
Yes, but life just has a boring real world setting. We want like cyberpunk and fantasy settings.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you are listening to the Augmented Reality Podcast. We're going to move on to the Cyberpunk stuff right away here, some of the new Cyberpunk details that we've got for you. But in the meantime, we do love seeing you also active in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us. You can chat with other Triple S League members, community members, about all the things we love to talk about. Stay up to date about everything we are doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. Rob Jones with the super chat. Thank you so much. Rob Jones says, Cyberpunk is my game of 2020. Anything else would have to wait until early 2021 when I've finished my 5th playthrough of Cyberpunk. Great show, guys. You're going to play through it 5 times between November and early 2021? That's okay. Okay, gonna set yourself up like a bathroom right there in your computer desk, or how's that gonna work? Anyway, thank you so much for the message, and yes, it's gonna be a lot of people's game of 2020, and hopefully for a long time to come. Hopefully they keep. I really hope this is one that CD Projekt pumps out content for years to come. Because I think there's so much potential with this world. I mean, eventually there'll just be another game for it. But let's talk about some of what we know about the game now. Let's first quickly. I just want to touch on Cyberpunk, the districts of Night City in Cyberpunk 2077. Because with the source book, the Night City, what is it called? The Cyberpunk 2077 lore book that is coming out.
Yeah, book.
There's images that are coming out. Plus, there's some screenshots being distributed from CD Projekt to media creators and things like that. We got a bunch of them put. I actually did a video on a whole bunch of the concept art of Night City. That for all of the city districts. You can check that out. It's a slice of Cyberpunk 2077, number 5, the Night City districts. But this image has been going around, and it's got, as you can see, it's got a map on the right, a map of Night City, and it's got images on the left that show a lot of that same concept art. And this is pretty accurate, at least in terms of the... In terms of the pictures on the left, the labels on them, I went through them all, and they're pretty accurate. The only one I'm not 100% sure of is Vista del Rey, but all of the others are accurate, at least generally. Like, I don't know if the top right one should be North Oaks or if it's North Oak. The screenshot I have says North Oak or Charter Hills. One of them is missing the S in the screenshot version I have. And then as far as the map. The map is pretty accurate as well. I don't know about the exact breakdown of each individual area or the borders thereof, but as far as the general positioning of the 6 major districts, this is pretty accurate. And the 6 districts of the city are Watson, Westbrook, the city center, Haywood, Santo Domingo, and Pacifica. A lot of those probably sound familiar to you if you've been following, the Cyberpunk content for a while. Plus, there's also the outskirts and Badlands, which are outside the city. So they might be like a district in the game, but it's not like an actual district of Night City. It's like outside of Night City. Plus, then you can see the island on the left side of the map. That is the... I'm going to just want to make sure I get this right here. The Orbital Air Space Center. And so that could potentially be another district, but we don't have any info yet on whether or not we'll actually be able to go there or what it looks like. My thought is that it could potentially be the site of of a game expansion that comes in the future. Yep. That is speculation on my part. We've got no inside info on that, but it does seem like this rather conspicuously large area that they haven't really given us any info about at all. So I'm just wondering if there's like some planned expansion or DLC for that. But the reason I wanted to bring this up was because there was an article that came out that's like, look at these screenshots of Night City's 15 districts. Well, you got to take that with a grain of salt. There are 6 main districts. I listed them out. There are sub-areas within each of those districts. That is true. And they are, like I said, they are labeled here fairly accurately. You know, Watson has the Arasaka waterfront. It's got Little China. It's got Kabuki. It's got the North Side Industrial District. That's, that's all. So those are different areas in the game. But they're all part of Watson, and Watson's going to be like kind of a cohesive unit with like sub areas within it. So don't expect each one of those to be like a massive thing necessarily. Like they'll be pretty large, obviously. Anyway, just wanted to clear that up. There's like districts, and then there's like the sub districts. So if you see like, oh, Night City has 15 districts, well, that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about 15 things the size of Pacifica. They're talking about things that are smaller than that. So, all right. Just wanted to clear that up. We'll bring it back to this now. Now we will we'll go to, as I teased earlier, was there something you wanted to say about that, Cyb?
Nope.
So we'll go to the info from nightcity.de and the experience that fine individual had with the game. Now I've copied a bunch of snippets to read, and so if you want to read the whole thing for yourself, you can go to nightcity.de. But lots of info in here, and Cyb, just jump in whenever you want to say something. First of all, 4 hours of Cyberpunk 2077 just scratched the surface of this massive action RPG. That's a sentiment we have heard from most people who have played the game thus far. He talks about how he was actually able to play it on a local computer. They actually set him up with a local computer, and then Miles Tost and a PR manager from the company were actually on site with him, so that's really cool. He was presented with the latest build as a preview version, which allowed them to enjoy Cyberpunk 2077 right from the start, including the character editor. The main focus was on the prologue to the game, etc., etc., etc. The only limitation was that the main quest could only be played up to a certain point. The prologue of the game ends in Watson, so other parts of the city are opened later for independent exploration due to the story. And on that note, most of what we've seen of the game takes place in the game's prologue.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start as a corporate employee, you start in the Japanese mega corporation Arasaka, where V is under enormous pressure but has installed military-grade cyberware and can afford things that others can only dream of in Braindance. So you don't just start in a different location, you start with a completely different economic status if you start on the corporate path, as opposed to if you start as a nomad. Nomad, you start in the Badlands in front of the city and have just sworn off your clan and non-sedentary life to try your luck as a lone wolf in Night City. That's his description of the Badlands starting. And if you start as a street kid, you know the streets and gangs of Night City like no other. V is ambitious, wants to get to the top. You know his name, and V, in turn, always knows someone who helps us out of trouble. I know the wording's awkward there. It's been translated from German. Bear that in mind. But anyway, so yeah, cool summary of the 3 different life paths. During the character creation, I won't go through the character creator. He lists all kinds of the options that are available. I keep saying he. I think it's a guy who runs the Night City Life blog, but if I've got that wrong, I apologize. But anyway, the character creation, he lists a whole bunch of options, but he said, I wanted to see if there would be any clipping problems with the genes and errors in collision detection. And so he basically decided to give himself maximum endowment on his male character for science. For science,
yes.
I heard from Miles that almost everyone chose the king size, but he says probably just like me, they did it just for science. So there you go. All right. On the topic of weapons, there are three broad categories of shooting iron. Power weapons, which are conventional, rather inexpensive, yet powerful weapons that fire simple cartridges with gunpowder. So we're all familiar with that. There are smart weapons, where you just let the weapon aim. Thanks to smart link, projectiles such as rockets target their victims themselves. The projectiles can be quite short, and the weapon itself requires little cooling. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but again, translated from German, so maybe someone else understands it better. The tech weapons are electromagnetic weapons that accelerate projectiles to tremendous speeds, ideal for penetrating armor and cover.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that ability, and I like the. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Just had to mute for a second there. Yeah, so three main.
And I'm looking for questions too. If you have any questions, get them in, so we can answer them before we go up for today.
Yeah. So three broad categories of your firearms. Then there's also, of course, melee weapons and things like that. But we also got some info on clothing from their Night City Life's breakdown. Armor is an exciting topic in Cyberpunk 2077, he writes, where CDPR made a great decision. The appearance and properties of garments can be separated. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about this before, but it's good to have that confirmed that that's still an aspect of the game. So that basically means that, like, if you like the look of a particular piece of clothing, like, you won't be stuck picking between, like, okay, this piece of armor has great stats, but it looks like crap. Like, you'll be able to kind of upgrade any clothing you want to have the stats you want. So he says some items of clothing are purely for visual purposes, while others have an additional fashion slot that can be upgraded, or fashion slots rather. Often the number of mod places increases with the item quality, but you can even add some through your own crafting. A good example are the sneakers that V often wears on screenshots. It can be just shoes, but you can also weave in special fibers that make ordinary street kicks quasi-bulletproof. In the preview build, I had installed a so-called fabric mod in the shoes, which brings plus 5.46 armor. These mods can, of course, also be exchanged, but you can keep the look you like and still, upgrade the stats. Mm-hmm. In theory, I'm reading, this is a direct quote, you could play with the starter look of V until the end of the game and have installed absolutely badass mods, but still look exactly the same. Clothing does not only offer armor, but of course some other bonuses, such as the famous samurai jacket, which really does something on the street, gives you a bonus on street cred, that kind of thing. Okay. All right, so I've got information all over the place here. Okay, let's talk about attributes now. So there's a lot carried over from the pen and paper Cyberpunk 2020 RPG. At the beginning of the game, you can distribute 20 points to the following 5 attributes: body, intelligence, reflexes, tech, and cool. And these all have individual skill trees behind them. There are 12 skill trees. Body has 3, reflex has 3, and then tech, intelligence, and cool each have 2 skill trees associated with them. The body skill trees are athletics, street brawler, and annihilation. Athletics improves your physical performance and resilience, and there are 22 skills. Or no, he counted 22 skills under athletics. And here's just a few of them. Gladiator, which reduces damage taken while blocking. Regeneration, regenerates your health in combat. Pack Mule doubles your carrying capacity. Invincible increases your maximum health. Superhero Landing reduces fall damage. Multitasker lets you shoot while sprinting, sliding, and jumping. Transporter lets you shoot and sprint while carrying a body. That's interesting. I wonder how often you'll be doing that. And Hard Mother Effer. At the start of a fight, armor and resistance are increased by 20% for 10 seconds. So there's just a taste of some of the skills that you'll have the opportunity to use if you go down that skill tree. Street Brawler is a tree with 20 individual skills, and it's mainly about hand-to-hand combat. Annihilation is heavy weapons such as shotguns and heavy machine guns. And there's a whole bunch of skills in that one as well. The Reflexes skill tree includes things like the 3 skill trees under Reflexes are handguns, rifles, and blades. Intelligence has device hacking and target hacking skill trees. Cool has stealth and cold blood. He doesn't break down a lot of the skills. I imagine he didn't want to take up a whole bunch of his time listing everything that was there. But anyway, there's just going to be a massive number of skills that you can choose from. So the 2 skill trees of the tech. Hang on a second here. Yeah. So tech still exists as an attribute, and it has 2 skill trees, but what a techie can do in the game world has changed significantly since it was originally announced. So.
And it's been really fed into the Netrunner role because there was a lot of crossover. There's not that much crossover in the pen and paper version, but there's a lot of crossover in a video game kind of FPS version, right? You really have a limitation when you don't have a group. When you have a group, a lot of these abilities suddenly become far more useful. You have a Netrunner and a techie, and those are both 2 really good things. But yes, in the vast majority of scenarios here, we're not going to be really, it's not really going to be useful to have those 2 different things, and that's why it got pared down. But it's still. It's still good, and it's still there. But yeah,
absolutely. All right, quickly, we're running low on time, but let's go through Cyberware. So Cyberware is very central to this game. Obviously, there are 3 categories of Cyberware: active, triggered, and passive. Active, I mean, I'm sure it's pretty self-evident what that all means, but active, it's where you trigger what it does yourself. You decide when it's activated. Triggered, as soon as certain framework conditions are met, your Cyberware activates. And then passive is where it just is working all the time, or it's like running continuously in the background. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of different slots: brain, eyes, cardiovascular system, immune system, and a whole bunch of others. But here's some examples of Cyberware you can use. The Mantis blades, we're all familiar with those. The blades that pop out of your arm. Blood pump is installed in the cardiovascular system slot. It activates at a certain point in time and improves healing. Micro rotors, passive Cyberware in the nervous system that improves movement, speed, and precision. Reflex tuners, triggered Cyberware that activate slow motion as soon as your health falls below a critical value. Gorilla hands. Installed in the hands, obviously, vastly improves your strength and melee strength. And the monowire, we're familiar with that one as well. We've seen it. That glowing wire that you can activate. Fiber optic lasso. You can slice enemies. You can use it as a Garrett. You can also do some hacking with it. It's very versatile. Kresnikov. We first saw this Cyberware as a booster spray, but it also exists as an implant for your nervous system. The trigger activates a slow motion effect as soon as you have successfully avoided an enemy attack. That's interesting. And Sin Lungs.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that concept. That's a good concept.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder if you can. It'd be neat if you could set the trigger for that. Like, I want this to automatically trigger when the guy I'm aiming at runs out of ammo or something like that. Like, if you could set the trigger for that, that'd be super cool. But I don't know if that. Yeah. I don't know if that's realistic. Sin lungs are artificial lungs that are installed that just improve your regeneration of your endurance. Of course, you can go without Cyberware if you wish almost completely. The Kiroshi eye implant is the only one that you have to implant because it's required by the story.
So there's also some kind of grenade or rocket launcher in V's forearm you can get. So very cool. All right, got to kind of power through here. So if you're into net running and hacking, here are some of the daemons you can use, which are kind of like spells if you want to compare it to like a fantasy RPG. But some examples include Short Circuit, overload your opponent's cyberware and cause damage. Overheating, this is a more powerful attack that not only overloads enemy cyberware but sets it on fire. SOS Signal fakes a distant squad member's emergency call, causing the victim to move and search the area. So that'd be a good one for a stealth playthrough.
Yeah, definitely a distraction ability there.
Suicide puts the target in cyberpsychosis, killing them with their own weapon. Optics Restart restarts the target's eye implants so that restarting the cyberware triggers temporary blindness. And Weapon Malfunction impairs the functioning of opposing weapons or even causes the weapon to need to be replaced. Plus, we've also seen a lot of examples of things in the game world that need to, that can be hacked. So there you go. Now, there's so much more in the nightcitylife.de article. Just way more than we could possibly go through here. Talks about menus. Talks about what the maps look like, what the new menu AI looks like, or AI, the UI, etc., etc., etc. Oh, okay. That's a lot of info. So, Saib, your reactions before we wrap up.
So, yeah, we talked about this on the Sunday show. We kind of went through it in at quite length. Jan went through the full list. This is all really good stuff, and we can see where they're really headed with most of this. So, yeah. And I've got bells going off here.
All right. Well, with that, I guess we'll wrap up the show because we're right at the end of the hour. Unfortunately, we have to keep the show limited to an hour on Wednesdays just due to time restraints. But thank you so much, everybody. Hope that you enjoyed the show. Hope that you found the info interesting and that it gave you some info that you're hungry for about Cyberpunk 2077. A lot of people itching for info about the game as we wait for it this November. But yes, thank you so much, everybody, for the great conversation in the live chat. Thank you for supporting the show by listening live or after the fact. Don't forget to slam that like button if you haven't yet. We really appreciate that. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters and our channel members who help make this content possible. Our big darn heroes on Patreon, Robin, Shua82, Time Bean, Schoolaman, Lady Reaver, and our 2 anonymous supporters at that level. Our channel members on YouTube, Mr. Pazdernik, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Night City Punk, Terror K, and Somnolence. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we appreciate your interactions there as well. And don't forget, you can join us for the live show on YouTube on Wednesdays and Saturdays, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. See the Discord server for exact times and schedule, and also join the Discord for great discussions there. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash. On behalf of Cyb, thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you again very soon.